It was late evening when I first arrived at a scaled town of Tiruvannamalai. The air was warm, touched with a faint scent of jasmine and incense drifting from the temple street. And above it all, rising in silent majesty, stood Anurachal, the hill, the stage called not just stone and earth, but a living embodiment of Lord Shiva himself. I had come here not only as pilgrim but also as seeker. For weeks I had heard whisper, travel spokes of an unknown monk who wandered around the hill, a figure who appeared at twilight, spoke in riddles, and then vanished. No one knew his name. Some said he was a saint, others said he was only a shadow, an illusion. I did not know what to believe, but that night, as the bell of the great Anurachal temple echoed through the street, I felt something calling me. I walked toward the base of the hill, where the red earth path began to wind upward. The world was quiet. The shopkeeper was closing their stalls. The pilgrims were returning home. And then I saw him. He was seated on the rock beneath an ancient tamarind tree. His robe was simple, the color of faded earth. His beard flowed gently, touched by the golden light of sunset. But it was his eyes that struck me, deep, silent, endless, as if they carried the weight of centuries. For a long moment, he simply looked at me. I felt no fear, only an familiar stillness arising inside me. Finally, he spoke. His voice was soft, almost like a whisper carried by a wind. You have come looking, he said, but what is it you seek? I I could not answer. My throat felt dry. I had many I had many questions about life, about God, about myself. But under his grey gaze, the words dissolved. He stood and without another word began walking toward the hill. Something in me moved and I followed. We climbed in silence. The moon has risen, casting silver light upon the rocky slope. Sometimes I heard the creeping of crickets, sometimes the rustle of leaves, but mostly there was a silence. A silence was vast, it seems alive. The monk led me through narrow path, deeper into the mountain. At times he would pause and glance back as if it to make sure I was still there. His step was light and effortless as though the earth itself carried him. After what I felt like hour, we reached a cave. Its entrance was small, half hidden by bushes. The monk entered and I followed. Inside, the air was cool, the cave was shimmered with the light of small oil lamp. He mountained for me to sit, and there, in that silence, something extraordinary happened. As I closed my eyes, I felt a wave of peace spread through me, through that had troubled me for years, seems to be fall away. Time itself seemed to stop. I do not know if minutes pass or hour or day. When I finally opened my eyes, the monk was still there, seated in a perfect stillness. He looked at me, and for a first time he smiled. Over the next day, or perhaps night, for I had lost all sense of time, I walked with him, sat with him, listened to his few words. Sometimes he spoke in riddles. Anurachal is not a hill, he once said, and I am not what you think. Sometimes he spoke of silence. The thirst teaching is not in word, it is in being. And sometimes there was a sign I could not explain. Seriously, I could not explain. It is very difficult. Once, as we sat at the stream, a sudden fragrance of roses filled the air, though no flower were near. Another time, I saw a faint light shining around him, soft light, the glow of the moon. Yet, when I asked villagers about him, they shook their head. No such monk live here, they said. Some even laughed. Perhaps Anurachal is playing with you. One night, beneath a sky filled with stars, I could not no longer contain my question. Who are you? I asked. Why do people not know you? Why do you hide yourself? The monk looked at me for a long time. His face was calm, but his eyes seemed to be freeze through me. Finally, finally, he spoke. You see me as a man, clothed in skin and bone, but I am not bound to form. Long before you were born, long before even your grandfather, I have been here. I am watched of the hill. I am silence. You feel when you when your mind becomes still. I am Anurachal. My breath stopped. His word rang in the air, heavy and alive. He leaned closer, his whisper soft as a night breeze. Many come seeking miracle, few come seeking truth. You were called because you were ready, but do not search for me again. For whoever there is a silence, there I am. Before I could reply, he closed his eyes. For a moment, the night seemed to be tremble, and when I opened my eyes again, he was gone. Only the stars remained and the vast silent presence of Arunachal. When I descended the hill the next morning, the town was alive again. Pilgrims crowded the temple street, children laughed, and life moved on. I asked again about the monk. Some smiled, some shook their head, some said nothing. But deep inside, I knew the truth. He was not a wandering hermit, not a forgotten saint. He was Anurachal itself, the eternal presence that takes form when a seeker is ready. I had come seeking a man. I had found the mountain, and the mountain had spoken. Now, whenever I close my eyes, I feel his presence, the unknown monk, the eternal Anurachal. Perhaps the world will never know his name, but to those who had called, he will always appear, not as a shadow, not as a man, but as the silence that leads to truth. And so the mystery is solved, yet it remains eternal. For how can one even explain the unknown?